S&P 500 hit an all-time high after the Federal Reserve cut interest rates by 50 basis points this week. The market doesn't seem to care that the Fed plans to cut less than what the market is priced in for the rest of 2024 and 2025. The market has decided to call the Fed bluff. Will the market be proved right? What is the elephant in the room that the Fed doesn't want to talk about? The Federal Reserve embarked on an easing cycle with a bang this week. Contrary to the expectations of many economists, including myself, it opted to cut 50 basis points as opposed to the usual 25. The fact that the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, sounded quite upbeat about the US economy during his press conference, and that he said that he was agnostic about the level of the neutral Fed funds rate, begs the question of why the normally cautious Fed decided to go big. Powell pointed out in his opening statement that labor market conditions continue to cool.
Payroll job gains averaged 116,000 per month over the past 3 months, a notable step down from the pace seen earlier in the year. The unemployment rate has moved up but remains low at 4.2%. The median projection for the unemployment rate in the SEP is 4.4% at the end of this year, 0.4 higher than projected in June.
Powell said during the press conference that the unemployment rate is the single most important labor data point. So let's assume that the Fed's decision to cut 50 as opposed to 25 had much to do with the fact that the unemployment rate reached 4.2% in August, up from 3.7% at the start of the year. Two questions immediately arise. One, in the new economic projections of the FOMC, the unemployment rate is expected to go up to 4.4% at the end of this year and stays there in 2025. Given the unemployment rate seldom stops once it starts going up, what would the Fed do if it keeps climbing after hitting 4.4%? Would it warrant another big cut? By the way, this is not a hypothetical question. Remember, we're already at 4.2%. We could be at 4.4% before the year's even over. The second question is even more important. It relates to what is causing the unemployment rate to go up. Powell acknowledged during the press conference that illegal immigration has been one of the two most important drivers behind the increase in the unemployment rate.
If you're having millions of people come into the labor force then, and you're creating 100,000 jobs, you're going to see unemployment go up. True, we understand there's been quite an influx across the borders, and that has actually been one of the things that's allowed unemployment rate to rise.
What Powell admitted implicitly is that illegal immigrants are not only entering the U.S. labor force, but that they're also entering the household survey conducted by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. This is an important admission, because given the illegals are more likely to be unemployed than U.S. nationals and legal residents, their participation in the household survey automatically raises the official unemployment rate. Moreover, given the illegals are seriously underrepresented in the household survey, their representation can only go up. Given the magnitude of the illegal immigration under the Biden administration, this means the official unemployment rate will go above 4.4% easily, and probably very soon. The million-dollar question is what the Fed should and will do when this happens. Since the start of the Biden administration, the U.S. Border Patrol has recorded close to 10 million border apprehensions. Despite a drop since this June, in the 2024 fiscal year alone, U.S. Border Patrol processed approximately 2 million migrants who crossed the U.S.-Mexico border without authorization. If we were to include migrants who managed to get into the U.S. without a run-in with the Border Patrol, the total number of migrants could be well in excess of 10 million people. But let's just say it was 10 million people. Given research shows that most of them are working-age adults, let's assume that 8 million of them have already entered the labor force. Remember, according to the BLS definition, someone is a part of the labor force if that person is either working or looking for work. What are 8 million people? Given the US labor force is only about 160 million people, 8 million people will represent an addition of roughly 5% to the labor force. Let's assume that half of these people have not found work yet. This means if the BLS household survey were to properly account for these people, it will push up the national unemployment rate to 6.7% overnight. I hope you can see why it won't take very much for the unemployment rate to climb above 4.4%. Powell talked about the decline of vacancies to job seekers ratio from 2 to 1 as another sign of easing labor market conditions. However, by definition, when illegals enter the labor force, they reduce vacancies and increase the number of job seekers. Does this warrant an easing of monetary policy? I argue in an earlier video that given it is a federal crime to hire an undocumented worker, it is very likely that illegal workers are even more undercounted in the monthly establishment survey conducted by the BLS. What this means is that monthly job gains are likely higher than what has been reported in the non-farm payrolls data. All I'm saying is that the supposed cooling of labor market conditions that the Fed cited to justify its 50 basis point cut could be as much due to the entrance of illegal immigrants in the US labor market as any weakening of US economic activities. The differentiation is important because monetary policy response should not be the same. I'm not saying the Fed is wrong in viewing illegal immigration as an addition to the productive capacity of the US economy and this as a source of disinflation. What I am saying is that if this is what the Fed thinks, it needs to be transparent about it, especially given illegal immigration is not all disinflationary. Housing is an obvious example. Even illegals need to live somewhere. Powell noted during his press conference that housing supply is very tight.
The real issue with housing is that we have had and are on track to continue to have not enough housing. And so it's going to be challenging. It's hard to zone lots that are in places where people want to live. It's all of the aspects of housing are more and more difficult. And, where are we going to get the supply?
It seems pretty safe to assume that illegal immigration is exacerbating the tight US housing market and driving up rent. Indeed, rental inflation has picked up over the last couple of months. Powell played down housing inflation in his press conference.
We know that market rents are doing what we would want them to do, which is to be moving up at relatively low levels. We will get down to 2% inflation, I believe, and I believe that ultimately we'll get what we need to get out of the housing services piece too.
Will Powell's confidence be proved right? And then there is the question of the US election. Trump has promised to carry out the biggest deportation in US history. If he gets reelected, we should assume the illegals will be even more unemployable. How would that influence the Fed's interest rate policy? I'm not sure, but what I do know is that the Fed's decision to go with a 50 versus a 25 basis point cut this week will likely give Kamala Harris a boost in the final stretch before the election. It will make it easier for Harris to defend the economic policies under Biden. It will help her make the case that inflation has been brought under control and that mortgage rates and interest rate on credit cards will be heading lower. The 50 basis point cut, sending the stock market higher, will help brighten the gloomy national mood. I don't know if that will be enough for Harris to win. What I do know is that should the Fed's outsized rate cut this week help Kamala Harris win the presidency, it will likely result in even more illegal immigrants arriving in the US. This in turn would drive rates even lower. I'm still in the dark as to why the Fed resorted to a jumbo rate cut this week, but it at least reinforces my view that Kamala is more bullish for bonds than Trump. Thank you for listening.